Good morning, and thank you very much for joining us. I am Yori Polari. Well, over the weekend, we seem to hear more. There had been rumblings right, towards the end of the week. But then, over the weekend, it sort of rose to a crescendo, talking about the Nigeria-UAE Aviation row, or imbroglio, if you want. So here we have it. This international, agreements that airlines and countries have among themselves. Well, it would look, going by some of the accounts that we've heard, it would look that the authorities in Nigeria feel that, I don't know how else to put it, that the authorities in the UAE are being quite cheeky, because there's a matter of reciprocity. If you come into my country so many times, then we should have the right to come into your country as many times, unless we can't fulfill it. But it would look like, to make a long story short, it would look like the UAE thought it would pull a fast one, and our authorities here are not standing for it. We'll get into the matter. We have in studio international media practitioner based in the US, but happily you're home for Christmas, Oluseyi Ogunlana. Thank you very much for coming on.
Thank you very much for having me.
Indeed, our pleasure. And Mr. Goddy Ike, an aviation expert, will be also joining us from our Abuja studio. Okay, I thought I'd be able to say good morning to Goddy, but looks like not yet. Goddy will join us along the line. But here we have this situation now. And related to all of this, of course, is this whole matter about us being put on some countries' red list. It's sort of related, but the UAE row, Nigeria-UAE row, is not necessarily related to this. First of all, give me your impressions, if you will, about this row between Nigeria and the UAE. And it seems that Nigeria, we feel that we've not been done right by.
Well, in my opinion, I actually listened to the voice note by the Honorable Aviation Minister, and I felt while I was listening to that recording, I was thinking in my head that how do you have a bilateral agreement when the terms are in your disadvantage in the first place? Obviously, the terms are in the disadvantage of our country, Nigeria, from the get-go. Secondly, what are the details of the agreement?
When you say not in our advantage, you're probably referring to the fact that we don't have an airline that we could. By the way, the figures that will come out, the UAE has 21 slots into Nigeria a week.
Yes,
or 3
a
day.
So the one frequencies agreed.
Yes, agreed.
Okay, the UAE has huge air transportation inflow into their country because of the tourism, that they are known for all over the world. Okay, and Nigeria is one of the places where a lot of people travel to the UAE for business, pleasure, and what have you. So they have the capacity to have the 21 frequencies. Nigeria does not have an official airline as we speak. So what terms are we working with the UAE with in the first place? On what basis do we have that kind of agreement of reciprocity?
But so, wouldn't it also apply to any Nigerian aircraft?
Yes, exactly, sir. That's why I said I don't know the details of the agreement.
Okay.
But what I know is when you're talking about Committee of Nations of the world, we are talking about national leadership. We are talking about the nations of the world. We are not talking about private businesses. Because in this case, Nigeria does not have a carrier. Even if we do, only one carrier from Nigeria, Air Peace, enters the UAE. And they have just one slot. They can only go to the UAE once.
Even though we have, again, referring to that recording that the Minister of Aviation put out, they have 21 slots from us.
Yes.
So your question is, how did they agree to the terms if we don't have a carrier, which the minister admitted was hardly their fault? It's our fault for not having a carrier. But his reasoning was that because you have got 21 that you asked for, and that's up from 14 where you were before the Buhari administration came in, you know, he also threw in some matters about some correspondence between them that he thought was less than respectful, you know. And so he was putting all of this based on the national sovereignty of Nigeria, and it will not be toyed with.
Well, I'm not surprised that they disrespected us, because imagine you going to a battlefront with SMG, with the huge rocket launchers, and somebody comes with an old Dane gun. You're going to laugh, because there is no basis for that kind of agreement in the first place, because we are taking a knife to a gunfight. You are going with an empty barrel to have an understanding and a kind of balanced relationship with another country that has more than enough. Obviously, the disrespect, the cheating started before the agreement was signed, because they have the capacity. We don't. So we can't complain that they've disrespected us. We can't complain that it's not balanced, because in nature, from the beginning, it wasn't a balanced situation. You get what I'm saying? So at the end of the day, they have 21 frequencies into Nigeria.
Yes.
They travel 3 times a week.
Yeah, three times a day.
A day.
3 times a day.
2 to Lagos, 1 to Abuja.
That's right.
And they do that every day of the week.
Yes.
We don't have one.
I hear you, but I just want to hear what you think, because it seemed to me that the minister, again using as reference his audio message that went out, the minister seems to think that it's between countries. You have 21 from us. The decent, respectful thing to do is for us to have 21 back. He did say that, look, it's therefore up to the only carrier that we have for now, Air Peace, to either operate on the 3 that we understand they applied for and were rejected. They gave them 1 instead, and the minister found that pretty insulting. Or if they could, operate the whole 21. I don't know what you think of that kind of logic.
There is a place for agreement, and there's a place for common sense, right? But everything depends on agreement. Okay, if the contract and agreement was signed between Nigeria and UAE, there's no clause in that contract saying that
that's very important.
If we are not able to provide a national carrier, any airline representing Nigeria,
carrying the Nigerian
into
flag,
your country can assume that position as our national carrier. If that contract doesn't say so, we cannot assume that they would
so those
agree
kind
to
of
that.
things you would imagine needed to have been locked down
in the contracts,
in that agreement.
In that agreement, yes, and they have been locked down in that agreement. If there are clauses, I'm sure they will still refer to the agreement and they would accommodate them. But if they are doing it out of sympathy or out of consideration, and you are asking for 3 and it's not embedded in the contract, they can even reject all 3 and say, sorry, we want to deal with you as a nation. We don't know Air Peace. They are a private organization. We respect that they are flying to our country. And another thing I would like to mention here is that instead of having that kind of agreement, if we are forward thinking as a nation, if we are interested in the growth and development of this country, we know that the UAE is going to earn more from us that would earn more from them in foreign exchange, in financial benefit. So instead of having that kind of agreement that we are not capable of having equal benefits on, why don't we just charge them and say, for each flight coming in, this is what you have to pay, and this is what you have to do, because we don't have equal strength.
So what do you think then of the intention of the aviation ministry through its leader, the minister, to say, fine, you granted us 1 slot, Air Peace asked for 3, you gave them 1, and we're not very polite, according to the minister, in doing it. Okay, the principle of reciprocity, you give us 1, we give you 1, never mind 20. Forget the 20. You give us 1, we give you 1. Is it becoming like a rougher fight?
Yeah, I think at that level, muscles have been flexed already, and at that level, it's not going to be based on genuineness of the agreement in the first place. It's going to be based on a kind of vengeance against the UAE.
Well, if you call it vengeance, as some people are seeing it, look, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. I know even the minister said that, yeah, it's not their fault that we don't have an air carrier, but still, the slots are there. We gave you 21. You are now giving us 1 when we asked for 3. Come on, show a bit of respect. That seems to be the attitude of the minister. Now, what do you think that is going to lead to? Because people who need to travel to the Emirates, now have to be very, very careful how they make and book their flights,
Yeah, they have to be very careful because it's going to be very, very restrained. It's going to be very limited, the spaces, and it's going to get very, very expensive as well. Because, of course, we know by law of economics, the lower the supply, the higher the cost. So what I think would happen at the end of the day is, in this situation, even the UAE coming into Nigeria, they usually don't bring their own people. They bring our people, and they take our people out to their country.
Exactly.
So if they don't agree with us at the end of the day, they'll be working against themselves as well, because they're going to be losing economically. We don't have a lot to lose because we have everything to lose already, because we don't have getting anything back from them.
Okay.
So,
let me take a viewer online. Good morning, Mr. Maduka.
Good morning, Yori.
Thank you for calling in.
How are you?
Very well, thank you.
How are we today?
Indeed, compliments of the season.
And same to you. Yeah, the topic today is a very interesting one. I was listening to your guest there. I think we need to understand one basic thing in this. When a country and another country signs a bilateral agreement, it's an agreement between countries. It's nothing to do with individual airlines. It is the country concerned that appoints which other airline that has to fly their flag. The contract is between national flags. When they appoint any particular airline, whether owned by the country itself or privately owned in the country, registered in that country, that becomes the national carrier. So whichever contract that those nations sign is automatically transferred to that flag carrier of an airline.
Okay.
So to that extent, I think Nigerian government was completely right. In fact, did what they did so late. Because if you know the number of flights that British Airlines, which includes British Airways, and British Airways is no longer British government property. It is currently operated completely privately. British government set it up, and no longer the sole owners. So it is still a private organization like Air Peace or any other airline. I think Nigeria deserves respect to that extent, because these people are making money. The people they fly in and out are all Nigerians.
Exactly.
So if we are pushing money to them, let me tell you what is going to happen. Just watch it. British Airways, Virgin Atlantic, they are not going to rest until they make their country to play games. Remember, it happened in the past. Nigeria has done a similar thing during the time of when we had very vibrant airlines. You know, Virgin Nigeria was pushed to Gatwick. Nigerian government made them to change that because they were flying into our main hubs every day of the week. And they pushed one of our own to Gatwick, which every one of us knows the status of Gatwick Airport in UK. So I think Nigerian government for the first time reacted appropriately. And I'm really in support of what they are doing.
Okay, then.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Maduka. And I dare say a lot of people also see it like that from conversations that I've been having. It's been too long that Nigeria has been reticent and quiet in the face of these kind of treatments. The minister even went further, again, going by the audio that is in the public domain now, and said that, look, even Saudi Arabia, even, you know, and a number of countries that elude me now, that have put us on their red list. Fine, carry on. We're putting you on our red list. The minister said that he's been part of a meeting with the National Council for Disease Control, and he has let them know the perspective of the aviation sector, and that they're not going to stand for it. Because, as you know, there's this whole imbroglio about whether or not they were right in putting Nigeria on their red list. Although, you know, we have to say that, yes, there are issues. There are issues of falsification of vaccination certificates, yeah. But people are saying, yeah, we can deal with that. It's nothing to be proud of. In fact, it's a disgrace. But to now tar the entire country, and, you know, it just doesn't make sense. And it seemed to me that the minister will seem determined that you put us on your red list, we put you on our red list. And he sounded very much like he meant business, and that if not by today, certainly by Tuesday on the outside, it was going to happen. People should just stop, you know, kicking us around.
Well, it's good to reject disrespect as the minister is doing. I mean, to be honest, I like the fact that he's speaking out and making a lot of effort to ensure that everything is put in check, you know, to make sure that our sovereignty as a people is not tampered with. However, we need to do better as a people as well, because we need to get our statistics right. Sometimes when the foreign countries don't have credible information or credible statistics of cases, for example, and of course, like you mentioned, cases of falsely generated certificates and all of that, it might just be safe for them to say, you know what, since we don't know, since we can't trust your information, and then
so there's that way of understanding the situation we have on our hands. Because I've even heard some commentary, I've read some commentary saying that Nigeria should go and find out why Ghana is not on the list, why other countries are not on the list, and then ask themselves why are they on the list. Of course, going back to what I said, the disgrace of falsified certification and all of that, and I can see it from their point of view. But the larger point still remains, look, horrible as it is, disgraceful as it is, that's not every Nigerian. For you to now brush everybody. Let me hear from Mr. Goddy Ike, aviation expert in Abuja. Good morning. It's good to have you finally. We wanted to say good morning at the top of the program.
Yes.
Now you're here.
Good morning, Falari.
Indeed. Thank you very much. We'd like to get your impression too on the impending, shall we say, showdown between the UAE and Nigeria as far as the bilateral air agreements, air trade agreements are concerned, with Nigeria on the verge of, you know, doing a tit for tat. If it is only one spot that is allowed Nigeria by the UAE, then even though the UAE had 21 concessions, so 21, a frequency of 21 granted by this government, then they were going to cut it back to one. You know, give me your thoughts on that line of action.
Yeah, first of all, Fulari, thank you very much. Diplomacy is a game, or call it business of reciprocity. It is a business of, if you like, tit for tat. UAE has absolutely no business behaving the way it is doing. It smacks of extreme level and unacceptable level of arrogance. You know, they can't go on the way they are doing. It's not right for, no matter what is the content of the BASA, that's the Bilateral Air Services Agreement, no matter what the content is, just like Madoka that I heard, you know, mention, any airplane that Nigerian government points to and says this is our representative becomes, you know, the flag carrier of the country. And so if UAE thinks that they can do 21 to Nigeria and cut us down to 1, we can also cut them down to 1, or even tell them don't even come in at all. They will be the losers. These countries must learn to respect us. No matter what our internal problems are, we are still the biggest country in Africa. Nigeria still remains that, and it can change quickly, irrespective of all the internal challenges that we have. Other countries have their own challenges, by the way. And so it's my thumbs up for Honorable Minister, Hadi Sirika. For once,
okay,
I find him taking the bull by the horn, and I find him, maintaining hard stance, because that is the way to run, diplomacy. Otherwise, other people will ride over you. As a matter of fact, when you talk about the Omicron stuff or talk about coronavirus, look at the statistics as put out by World Health Organization, WHO. Only 46% of the worldwide cases reside in Africa. A whopping 54% exist mostly in Europe, America, and Asia. And yet, these countries would like to behave as if it's only, in Nigeria that the whole thing is going on wrong. So where is the moral grounds for what they are doing? So I agree completely with Honorable Minister Hadi Sirika for the hard stance he's taking. If I were in his shoes, I would be harder.
Okay.
There is no country of the world that has any right to do what UAE is doing to us. And now I'm hearing about Saudi Arabia,
yes,
canceling the Hajj and the rest of them. For goodness sake, the worst of coronavirus does not exist in Nigeria, neither does it exist in Africa. It exists elsewhere, and therefore there is no reason for anyone to put us on the red list, and there is no reason for any country to say, "Oh, your airline can come in, but theirs can, come into Nigeria." No.
Okay, Goddy, let me bounce off you. Goddy, let me bounce off you. It's related, but not the same as the situation we're talking about, and that's the matter of red lists. As you know, countries are putting other countries on red lists, and the minister has, I don't want to use the word threatened, but has stated that, look, you put us on your red list, what is it now, without due cause that we can recognize, and then we put you on our red list. Again, you started off by explaining the principle of reciprocity in international, in diplomatic affairs. That particular line of action, against the backdrop, the unfortunate backdrop of some Nigerians having been, found to have false, vaccination certificates. Again, what would be your commentary?
All right, I hear you, Flore. I do hear you clearly. I want to let you know that we admit we have our own fair share of charlatans in Nigeria, just as they exist anywhere else in the world. For goodness sake, Flore, you have charlatans everywhere in the entire world. It's not only in Nigeria that you have them. If you want to know, let me tell you a little bit of my own experience and life history. The very first time in my whole life that I realized that somebody could pick up your money by false pretense, it didn't happen to me in Nigeria. It happened to me in Miami, Florida, in the USA. That's where, for the first time as a young businessman, I realized that somebody could sweet talk you into parting with your money, and then you come back the next day to pick up what you paid for, and you find out that the individual was not there anymore on site, and the money was gone and gone for good. And now, if you talk to anyone around the world, they say, "Oh, Nigeria, 419, oh, this and that, and I call names. For goodness sake, charlatans exist everywhere, and we have our own fair share in Nigeria, and nobody should insult or run us down because of that. Perhaps we're not managing our information as well as we should do. If we were, a whole lot of things going on wrong here, cannot be picked up by the world and amplified the way they are doing. Truly, it's not a good thing that some individuals are going out there engaging in forgery and engaging in picking up force certificates without getting the job.
Yeah.
It may be true that that's going on. It's up to government to set up a means of monitoring those that are painting us black, and destroying our image, around the world. Get them and have them roundly and and thoroughly punished.
Indeed.
And you see, if you do not show that there will be consequences for bad behavior, nobody behaves well. You have a whole lot of people behaving very badly everywhere in the world. The only difference is that the people take laws for granted here in Nigeria because we haven't really put our feet down to find out the individuals that are bringing us this shame, no matter how big they are, no matter how worthy they are. If you get them, you expose them and try them and put them away. That's the way to go.
Indeed.
If you don't do that,
okay, Goddy, I'm going to come back to you. Thank you very much. I'm going to come back to you, please. So please stay with us. But Seyi in studio here. Going back to the whole matter of the Emirates UAE, the minister, he's being right now people are hailing that at last somebody to stand up for us, and people are sort of supportive of his resolve to address this situation. But there are those that could also say that Minister Sirika himself was part of the people who he himself says negotiated the BASA thing, and it is at that stage that they should have made it clear, I think, as you indicated initially, that look, in the event of our failing to have a national carrier, whoever carries a Nigerian flag, as Mr. Maduka has said, and Goddy has just said, it will be part of our quota. And so you are not, not just UAE, whoever we're negotiating with is not at liberty to say, no, in the absence of a federal government-owned, flag-carrying airline, we consider those ones as doing you a favor. The minister said that he was scandalized when people were saying that at very great, peril to them, the UAE people, they would just see what they could do to granting one. So there's a little talking down, more than a little talking down going on there. And I like the way the minister put it, as a matter of fact. Say, look, on behalf of 200 million, Nigerians, their sovereignty, we can't mess around with that.
Well, I'm going to be very, very factual. I'm going to be very real in this situation. And I will start by saying that much as I really admire the fact that the minister is very outspoken and very, very boisterous on this matter, I also want to say that we have already given the UAE some extra power to determine.
I beg your pardon.
Okay.
I want to take this point, that you've just got to, that we, on our own, gave the UAE extra power. I've got to take a quick break. So Goddy Ike and Seyi in studio, please stay with us. We'll be right back and we'll continue this conversation and even take calls from home. Stay with us, please. Okay, welcome back. And this morning on TVC Today, we're looking at the imbroglio that's developing between the UAE and Nigeria over the BASA, bilateral airspace or aviation services agreement.
Yes.
Yeah, something like that. You get the idea. We agree these things, and UAE is not playing fair, according to the Nigerian side. UAE has 21 slots. They have a frequency of 21, and the minister is threatening to cut that to 1, which would be reciprocity for what the UAE has done to Nigeria, instead of giving us even 3 that Air Peace asked for. Never mind, you're not giving us 3. Certainly you're not giving us 21. You're not even giving us 3. You're now saying, in a way that the minister says, just doesn't sync with international, agreements and that kind of a thing. You're now giving us just 1. So we're looking at it, and Seyi was saying that there's a sense in which we ourselves gave other countries, in this case South Africa, UAE, what, the power to do this? How did you mean?
The reason why I said we've given them the power, like I said, I appreciate the boisterousness of the aviation minister defending the nation and its integrity. However, what are the reasons that the UAE have given for rejecting the two other presentations by Air Peace?
Among other things, they say that their airspace is chock full.
Okay. Now, they are determining the standards. They are determining the conditions of agreeing or disagreeing. Nothing is at our own advantage. That's the point I'm making. If we are already giving them 21 frequencies and we are asking for just 3, and they can't give us that 3, they are reducing it to 1 because of space. Now, have we investigated that reason to find it true and credible? If we have found it true and credible, that might be a good reason. Good, quote unquote. But if that is just a mere excuse to reject us, or they say the carriers have certain conditions that have not been met, only 1 out of the 3 presented have been met by certain aviation standards. So for that reason, 2 are being rejected and 1 is being accepted. If that is what they are telling us, again, we have to investigate that as well. Who is the teacher? Who is the student here? Who is giving the rules? Who is the follower? That is the point I'm making, because at the end of the day, if you're having an agreement with anybody, I believe, in my own personal opinion, I'm not a professional aviation person, but I believe that there should be a level of similarity in the strength.
That's the parity that people talk about.
Yeah, what you're bringing to the table when it comes to agreement, how is it favorable to you? In case one person defaults in the agreement, do you have enough strength to pursue that person? Do you have enough strength to equalize the standards with that person? And everything that I'm saying right now doesn't seem like we have that kind of energy of our equality.
But we do have the power of reciprocity, because I understand what you're saying, and I follow you entirely. And bringing this back to you, Goddy, the reciprocity principle that you spoke about, there are those who are commenting also that, look, when the BASA agreement was being, negotiated, not to say being cobbled together, perhaps the best job wasn't done, where all these things could have been spelled out such that the UAE or any other country will not be able to go this particular direction with us, because most Nigerians that have never flown before cannot see the reason for you to have 21, a frequency of 21 into us, and we have only 1 into you. Could it be that a good job wasn't done when these things were being negotiated ab initio?
No, Folari, I don't accept that. If you've taken a look at 1 or 2 BASA agreements, you see that it's all standard, basic, contents with 1 or 2 little changes, from one nation, to the other. One can safely say that if, for instance, one country does not have a capacity to do the same frequency as is given to another nation that's got the capacity, it can be safely concluded that any time that other lower capacity nation builds up its capacity, you can match what the other nation is doing. There is absolutely no moral grounds for any country to have 21, and then the other country that gave you 21 is asking for 3, and you say no, you can only get 1. It couldn't be from the content of the BASA agreement. It's all about arrogance. Thinking that you do not have the capacity to resist, the unfair treatment. And I can tell you, it's not a question of having a wrong BASA agreement. Maybe if you want us to do another day, I can get you graphic information on the BASA agreement signed by Nigeria with UAE and any other country of interest that you want. If you can do that, that's another program for another day. Even tomorrow, whenever you can.
Okay.
I will get you graphic information of the contents of these documents, and then you see that it's not content of document we're dealing with, it is attitude that we are dealing with. And a couple of nations have done this in the past and gotten away. That's why other ones, of all people, UAE, I must give it to them that they've done well for themselves in the short time that they started transforming their nation, and they have been able to transform their nation to an enviable height. It's a challenge for us that we must begin also to look inwards to transform ours. We can, and we are worthy enough as a nation if we harness what we have internally to be as good as we can be. So don't accept that explanation about somebody doing a bad job on the BASA agreement. Okay. It's just attitude, and it's just arrogance. And this is the first time you find an honorable Minister of Aviation resisting the insult. In the past, we took them and bowed our heads as if we were little babies that didn't know what to do. And you can imagine how people like me, how hurt I was, and those people who think the way I do were when those things were going on in the past. Yes. As a matter of fact, I had a conversation on a TV during a TV program with NTA with Honorable Minister Hadi Serika, where we had a conversation, and I shared some hard positions concerning the things happening in the aviation sector and how the rest of the world, has been dealing with us. And he smiled and walked away. I didn't know that the idea I shared went in. So I'm very excited and I'm very thrilled that he's putting his feet down and standing up to all these nations. You know what, Fulani? They need us more than we need them. Okay. If you want to know, Indeed. They do need us more than we need them. There's money to be made in Nigeria.
Exactly.
Huge money. Exactly. There's no other place in the world that the kind of money made in Nigeria is made. It doesn't exist anywhere in the world. Don't let anybody deceive you. Indeed. I have had an early opportunity of globetrotting and seeing the world and how things happen elsewhere. And that's why it hurts me that we engage in some activities that have put us down as a people and as a nation. And then if only we can deal with corruption, if only we can deal with issue of people looting and and keeping them in various manners and ways that we can find out if we want, if we have the courage as a government to look out for these monies, we'll find them even internally and externally, and then put them back into our tier and develop our nation. And so don't accept that. It's not a question of the contents of the BASA agreement. It's just sheer arrogance and disrespect. That's what it is.
Okay. I want to thank you very much, Goddy. Mr. Goddy Ike is an aviation expert, and he joined us from our Abuja studio. Thank you once again for taking time to come on the program.
Thank you. It's my pleasure. Anytime.
Indeed. So, well, that's one perspective. A lot of Nigerians would say, yeah. But there still is the business side of it because, as he was saying, there's a heck of a lot of money to be made in Nigeria. And the minister was saying that he knows this is going to hurt them. And it's a matter of, just having the resolve and waiting it out, and then the right thing would be done ultimately. Because they're going to be losing money. But maybe leaving this part of the conversation for the moment until maybe somebody calls in and wants to bring it back. The other aspect about reciprocity that you and Goddy brought up, that look, it's a matter of international, in diplomacy, you do me, I do you. There must be mutual respect. It's strange because I thought we were on good terms with countries like Saudi Arabia. If I recall properly, I think Brazil, if not Portugal, a number of them, that have now decided that this red list thing, Nigeria should be on it, when they should have been. Well, is it too much to expect that they could have been a bit more respectful and do some investigation before taking the ultimate step of slapping us on your red list because of Omicron, that kind of a thing. I know the obligation is ours, and we ourselves are at fault. But for them to hastily put us on a list like that, let me see what Mazi Okorafor has to say about it. I understand he's come on the line. Good morning, Mazi.
Good morning, sir. Good morning, I guess.
Yes.
Sir, you see, good morning, compliments on you.
Indeed, compliments.
Why we are facing all these issues, all these problems, all this ban or no ban, is because the international community, they have tagged Omicron as African virus. In as much as they have tagged it now, anything that happens in Africa, they assume that Africa, I think we are all aware that in 2020, the focus they had was that by December last year, or so by April or May last year, or August, that many Africans will die. But
yes,
behold, God Almighty did not allow such things to happen. Now, the question now is this: why is it that Africans will always depend on what we get from outside? Because we have said to make use of our own natural resources and enhance it. If the one we have the competitive advantage and move forward, that we continue importing. In as much as African countries, not only Nigeria, we continue importing. I think you saw it over the weekend. Uganda, that China, they have taken over their airport. Now, is it not the laws that were collected by past leaders in Uganda? So that is the problem. We continue to see that now. We have a lot in this Africa. Ask yourself, why is it that fertility period, Africans start running down to Europe? We have all the facilities down here in Africa. If you come back to Lagos, at least in Lagos, let me just give 2 instances. All these trades for students, all these amusement, this entertainment during Christmas time, which I've witnessed, it's too numerous. The question is, are you ready to go out with your children and enjoy your life? Why do we depend on outside Nigeria? Now, what has happened to me, I love it. All this bad is good. So that we will sit down here and enhance our own resources and make sure we put our own house in order and stop depending outside. By the time hospitals outside will say Nigeria, state and our leaders will do what? They will make sure that our hospitals will have the best facilities. Our education facilities will have the best. The earlier they do, the better for us, so that we stop rushing. No, as a judge, if I away, all European countries, they should ban Africans from coming to their place for anything. Let Africans sit down here and concentrate, because we have the opportunity when we siphon money and go to Europe and invest. Leaving mass people here suffering. Ask yourself, you are there. There's nobody in your company who will not say they don't have unemployed people there. Don't you have the resources? Why do we go outside? Because our leaders are carrying our resources and go outside and invest them and leave in Africa here to super. No, to Igbo man, wherever you are, continue banning all bannable to Africa. Let them settle down and do the needful in the Africa. Thank you very much. Merry Christmas.
Thank you very much, Mazi Okorafor. I saw you were nodding at some things because you see, Nigerians, I guess, feel a bit hurt. It doesn't matter that even if you're a Nigerian who has never, flown before, it doesn't matter. They understand that this is a matter of reputation. This is about international, the way we are seen. But you seem to be agreeing with some of the things that Mazi was saying.
I agree with Mazi 150 million% because it's such a shame that we are in this situation when we have all the power and the ability not to be. For example, when I was flying into Nigeria from Washington, I can tell you 95% of everyone on that flight were Nigerians. The whole plane, 95% were Nigerians.
Okay.
Now imagine we had a carrier, our own carrier, that could do business with the United States, bring in Nigerians in. First of all, in this case with UAE, having 21 frequencies, for them to have 21 frequencies in a week, that means at least they would have the minimum of 15 carriers doing that route, okay? Imagine that Nigeria had 15 airlines. Do you know how many youths are going to be employed on each airline?
Yeah,
the pilots, the engineers, the staff, the ground staff, that will be employed. That is income for the country. In this agreement, my point is, I don't know the nitty-gritty of it, but the point that I'm making right now is that we are not dealing with this move strength for strength, because they have 21. That is the 21 times the profit they make on each flight going into their country. If we had that capacity to trade blow for blow, strength for strength for them, we'll be sharing it at least.
So we wouldn't be bringing a knife to a gunfight.
Exactly.
Okay, Mr. George, good morning, and thank you very much for holding on. Compliments of the season.
Same to you, Uncle Yori, and greetings to your guest.
Yes.
Uncle Yori, with the minister on this, the stand he has taken is the right stand to take. If a Nigerian commits an offense, does that mean the whole of Nigeria has committed that offense? Let that particular Nigerian face the music for committing that offense. Nobody can say you are stupid unless you behave stupidly. If other countries are taking us for granted and riding us, it is because we give them the opportunity to be doing so. From the discussion I've had here now, how many citizens from UAE use those flights? The money that UAE is making from those flights, how many of their citizens are part of it? Nearly 100% of the passengers are Nigerians.
Yeah.
So they are the ones who will lose if that business does not exist anymore. Why are we in a hurry to be doing what in our local parlance, boy to other countries, even countries that don't have the kind of resources that we have? So let us value what we have, then will people value us? I understand that the government is considering banning flights from UK, USA, and Canada. They should.
Yeah, Canada is in there. Yeah.
Yes.
Particularly Canada. Yeah. Well, thank you very much, Mr. George. Again, as Minister Sidika said, look, tough times, but he felt that, sorry about that, we need to power through this. Enough of being taken for granted. It's sort of interesting the way Nigerians have risen on this, at least those that have been around me that I've heard their commentary of that. This is, it's not respectful. And,
yes, it's quite disrespectful, and I really, like I said, I admire the minister for being so boisterous and being articulate about this situation and defending the nation. Besides that, I think it's also important for us to take a lesson from this and take our own, battle into our own hands and equate ourselves as much as possible, power for power, strength for strength with where we're having agreements. Yeah. For example, I mentioned earlier that aircraft, if we had aircraft, would employ people, that would reduce poverty. Services. For example, there's these charities that are feeding people, like Ajoke Relief Foundation the other time was feeding people, giving them food and all of that, because people are poor. So the point is this: if you are able to employ people by strengthening the capacity, like the airline and the aviation industry, I don't know what the reason is why we don't have a carrier. We don't have one national carrier that we can say it's ours. So if we have one, imagine the number of people that will be working with that.
Well, that's another conversation. We do have our issues. But I guess we're going to have to leave it here for now. The matter, I don't know, unless they can resolve something. The minister was saying that countries shall find themselves on our red list latest tomorrow. All other things being equal, unless we want to bring some parity to bear. But Mr. George has made the point. I think Goddy in Abuja also made the point. You have said it, that those Nigerians that are giving us a bad name by all these things that they do, such as falsification of vaccination certificates that have now complicated the whole matter, it's about time that Nigeria got serious and threw the book at them. After due investigation, threw the book at them so that it becomes known that no, you can't do that again, because I would say arguably they've messed things up a bit. People that were a bit lukewarm with us now are latching on to that and saying that, aha, you see now. Mm-hmm. So,
well, they are talking, if that's the basis for their judgment and disrespect, what about the Nigerians giving them good names? Nigerian born with Nigerian names, bearing the passports of these foreign countries and doing those countries proud as citizens of those countries. There are a lot of Nigerians. One of the biggest airports in the world is owned by a Nigerian. So I feel like there are Nigerians doing great things, and we're not just singing praise of them well enough.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much, Mr. Oluseyi Ogunlana, International Media Practitioner. Thank you very much, and welcome home. You came home for the Christmas season, usually based in the U.S. And also, our thanks go to Goddy Ike, Aviation Expert, and indeed all of you that called in. That's our program today. Please join us tomorrow for a fresh edition. I am Yori Folarin. Bye-bye for now.